What would you like to be illegal, but isn't? I'm in the fishing industry as an observer. To get his job, you have to give up all fishing licenses, if you have any, and sell any assets you have related to the industry. That includes your boat, your quota, and any stocks that you may have tied into large fishing companies. If you have family that fishes, it has to be disclosed. Basically, we're held to higher standards than politicians are for the fraction of the money that those scumbags make. They are super illegal in most states if you are on the national do not call registry and they try to sell you something. I had one from Texas and I submitted a complaint to the Attorney General, where I live. I received a message back from the AG saying that they confirmed I'm on the DNC list and they will let me know what the next step is after they do their thing, and hear a response from the offending company. Fuck these lazy robo-cons. Excited to see what happens. You know the junk mail you get that has an envelope inside that's prepaid? Literally just trip up what they sent you, put it in that envelope, and drop it off at a post box. That way you don't have to deal with more junk, recycling to take out, but the postal service gets paid from that company to get mailed their literal shitty-ass advertisements back to them. Banks being able to approve pending transactions in any order they can to charge you maximum fees. For example, you have $482 in your account and you buy a $2 candy bar, and then a $5 cup of coffee. Both are pending, then an automatic payment of $500 comes out and is pending after those two purchases. The bank should approve those charges in the order they were made. So, $482 to 2 to 5 to 500 equals minus $25. Then most banks have an overdraft fee, say $35 or so at most you are minus $60. However, and this has happened to me, the bank approves the $500 charge first, putting you $18 in the hole and charges you a $35 overdraft fee. You are now at minus $53. Then the $2 charge comes out, another $35 fee. Then the $5 coffee and another $35 fee. You are now at minus $130. 3 overdraft fees instead of 1. Perfectly legal, last I knew. Horribly unethical in my opinion. There was a class action against Bank of America about 10 years ago for this exact practice. They would purposely rearrange the charges no matter how they occurred chronologically to maximize overdraft fees for financially struggling customers. Talk about a predatory, garbage person organization. I canceled my account when I noticed and people laughed at me. Then a check for $12 showed up in the mail one day a few years later. I've never heard of that happening before, but I can see it happening outside of Canada. Here, when you use your debit card, the money is taken out immediately. No pending charge, it's gone immediately. Same with withdrawals. And if I use the credit card function, it puts a hold on the money before getting taken out, effectively earmarking it so shit like that can't happen. The only time I ever have a pending charge that's not immediately taken is setting up a payment from outside my online banking. The joys of federally regulated banking. Had someone tailgate me around 10/11 p.m. one night with their brights on while I was getting my driving time in while holding my permit with my dad. Very dark out, trees covering the road, so no moon, starlight to help any. Found a cop later on who pulled into a driveway then got behind the tailgater, but the person behind me still didn't turn off their brights or back off. Couldn't see around the turns, long, windy hill, due to their brights. Always thought it was an oncoming car. There's a way to get the bill down. Ask for an itemized bill. Then if you have no insurance, tell them. Then ask for their charity program. They legally have to have charity programs. If they are public hospitals, they're technically a charity. Then your bill might go down to $0 or very low if you make $50,000 and under a year $100,000 if you're married. Look up your area and hospital's charity program. Then look up the fair market price for whatever test you had done. If you can't get charity, then tell them they overcharged you, which isn't allowed. They will bring it down to fair market value. When I was throwing up and shitting blood, it cost me $10,000 with no insurance. I went into the they said, you need a specialist, and there was no GI specialist, so they made me stay overnight until a GI came in the next morning. He did an endoscope and took a biopsy and discharged me with antacids. I got a bill from the hospital itself, a bill from the emergency room doctor, a bill from the GI specialist, a bill from the anesthesiologist, and a bill from the pathology office for the biopsy. All in all came out to a little over $10K for a single night stay and an endoscopy, and if they found something I'll never know because I never went back like the specialist wanted me to. I literally would have been better off staying home and taking some Pepto. That one night in the hospital fucked me up for years. I couldn't pay $10K and they absolutely wouldn't work with me like everyone says they do. They refused to deduct anything, and I tried every trick in the book, like asking for an itemized bill, told them I was an unemployed student with no income, insurance. They didn't care. That was almost 8 years ago and I've never been back to the doctor, and I think that collections is off my record finally. Abandonment of seafarmen. Now I'm talking out of my expertise, but I stumbled on it on. Basically, a company can abandon a wrecked ship and leave the sailors aboard that ship. There are many technical loopholes I don't understand, but I know there was this one sailor who got abandoned right next to Egypt. He was legally not allowed to leave the ship. He got stitched up into signing something he didn't know what it was, isn't allowed to go into Egypt, will go to jail, and has been there for a year or two before the Seafarmen Union swapped someone in his place. This is a good video on the situation, and the update. https://b/1zdqgim. I went to a university, where one graduation requirement is that we have an internship in our field. There are several requirements that internship has to meet, one of which is that we actually get paid. It's sad that lots of companies think that unpaid internships are a perfectly reasonable thing to have. No. Number. Reverend your engine back at them. Point forward down the road, then do the whole two-finger point at your own eyes. Then turn the two-finger point to a one-finger point directly at the opposing driver. If you can, roll down your window and taunt him, because, come on, it's a him, about his manhood and his substandard modifications on his car. Then when the light changes, just continue driving like normal as he peels out. Spoof calling people. The technology needs to be revoked, or at least a country or person, via their cell phone carrier, should be able to ban IPs or calls from, say, India. I don't want your goddamn extended warranty. The fact that those fuckers hang up on me when I say, yeah, I want your extended warranty. I have a '97 Civic with 250,000 miles on it that I wrapped around a tree. The transmission needs rebuilding, the clutch, pressure plate, and throw-out bearing need replacement. Also, the brake pads are worn, the rotors are warped, the brake booster needs replacement, and my old air freshener hasn't worked in 3 years. Always I get immediately hung up on. Either sell me the warranty and I'll go buy a POS at the junkyard so you can use that warranty, or take me off your goddamn list. 2 things. Not necessarily illegal but with strict regulations. Animal breeding. It should be harder to become certified as an animal breeder, and strict penalties if your animal has babies more than once without being desexed. The quality and standards should be higher and checked meticulously and regularly by a certain breeding authority. My attitude stems from the fact that there's one particular breeder who did backyard breeding before getting certified. They absolutely don't deserve to be an actual breeder, as they have no clue about how dog breeding actually works and would not be able to raise them correctly. It is a mess and somehow legal. Now this one should be illegal. Playing car horn and siren noises on the radio. I've heard it too many times in the car and it sounds all too real. And I'd put additional regulations for pug, other flat-nosed dogs breeding, but pugs especially. These breeds have huge breathing problems. Some even can't have pups by their own. Human needs to help them. And TBH, if an animal can't breathe on their own, something is certainly fucked up. Also in Poland there is something we call pseudo-breeders or STH like that. It is basically illegal, and someone with such a company, when detected, will face charges of animal abuse. Remember when smoking was starting to be banned on bars and restaurants? Smokers were freaking out because they have to smoke while drinking. Nobody will go out anymore. Bars, nightclubs, and restaurants will all collapse. Live music will be obliterated, etc. Didn't happen, did it? What did happen is that people who had stopped patronizing bars, restaurants, and nightclubs due to the choking quantities of smoke started going out again. Nightlife survived and thrived. Vacant housing. You can buy it for an investment, sure, but you can't have it just sitting there unused. It should have to be up for sale or rent, and you should have to accept an offer within some time frame. You can't leave it vacant because you want to sell but are trying to time the market, trying to push prices up in the area, or any other reason. You sell now or you rent it out. In my country, about 3% of homes are vacant, approximately 2 years' worth of new built housing. I thought of another one I was just talking about today. Insurance having any say in what medications doctors prescribe their patients. They aren't doctors. Doctors prescribe specific medications for a reason. Like, I was on a med that worked perfectly for me with minimal side effects for years. Then I got a new job and they had to change my meds because my new insurance didn't cover it. Had very undesirable side effects. I was on the other med for a reason. It worked. Why change up my meds all of a sudden? They really shouldn't be able to do that. And there's this whole thing where you have to fail 2 or 3 meds before they cover your old one again. Like, what? No, I've seen this happen with other meds and people got really sick trying new meds when their old one worked just fine. Sorry, I had to rant about this. Insurance people aren't doctors and shouldn't get a say in what a doctor prescribes their patient. Period. Edit. Not to mention people who have worked years with their doctors to find the right meds, only to get new insurance and have them not cover the meds that work best for them. Happened to me. It's a real pain. Driving too slowly on a highway when conditions are good should be just as illegal as going too quickly. Yes, I'm aware that some countries have minimum speed limits on highways, but they are usually ridiculously low. They should be policed just as harshly as the maximum speed limit is, and also be closer or the same as the maximum speed limit. Vegan cat and dog food. Cats will go blind and suffer horrible, slow, painful deaths without meat, and dogs forced to be vegan always look like they're dying of cancer. It's animal abuse to force them on an unnatural diet. Not caring for the plants in your backyard to where they grow to be a fire hazard. We have neighbors that refuse to prune their trees and bamboo until it touches the wires and starts sparking, and the company that owns the wires comes out and prunes them for them. They flat out said as long as we can get them to do it for free, we'll never care for them. Since the trees and bamboo are in their backyard, the city says it doesn't violate any codes. If it was their front yard it would be different. Refusing to vaccinate your kids, pets, and yourself unless there's a legitimate medical reason, like proven allergies to the ingredients in vaccines. Proven false rape allegations. By that, I mean straight up, usually girls, people reporting someone for rape or molestation when nothing ever happened, exclusively to ruin that person's life or the accuser benefits in some way. I think if it is proven without a shadow of a doubt that nothing happened, or they later admit to lying, that person should be jailed. Personal opinion. Can't stand that shit. So what I mean is like actual, criminal, jail time, not just for it to be illegal. I guess I answered the wrong question. Behaving like a sociopath while having any level of responsibility over the lives, working conditions, rights, incomes, standard of living of any sentient creature. Sociopaths need professional medical attention, not encouragement to cause more harm to potentially whole societies or even several at once. At a minimum, all known or suspected sociopaths and psychopaths amongst the ranks of politicians, public and religious leaders, CEOs, police, managers, lawyers, millionaires and billionaires, etc. should be disqualified from those roles until they can demonstrate that they can conduct themselves in a way that isn't harmful to anyone that they have power over. Then be under a probationary period for a number of years depending on the severity of their sociopathy and their previous conduct. Buying multiple investment properties. There needs to be a cap on how many one can own and stricter regulations on who can own them. Writing this specifically out of spite for my parents, who own 4 different properties and on their way to buying another block of land to build a house to retire in. They're landlords and are pushing me to move into one of their properties where I'm not allowed a roommate because they want the spare bedroom free if they ever grow tired of their retirement house on the beach. They know I'm vulnerable because I have nobody to move with to make rent cheaper anywhere else, and they sprinkle a lot of guilt tripping on top. But if you don't move into that unit, where will we stay when we come to visit? In a hotel. Like everybody else, I'm not your bench warmer. I believe first home buyers should have the opportunity to get to it first and at a discounted price. Like, if you already have a perfectly good home, what do you need all these extra properties for? Don't be greedy. Let the young adults have a chance to achieve the home ownership dream. If I was responsible for rewriting all the laws regarding home ownership in my country, I'd make the first home you purchase discounted with flexible methods to pay it off. Make it so rent is counted as credit history to prove that you can pay off loans and mortgages. Make it so casual work where the hours are very consistent and checking in with your employer proves that you're unlikely to get fired is just as valid as people who work part-time or full-time, because everywhere hiring is always looking for casual work. It's unavoidable. In my line of work, I'm a casual worker because the people I work with are unpredictable and can cancel on me on the day. I can get called in for cover shifts on that day. I need to be flexible. The job is just too unpredictable. Cap investment properties or scrap them altogether. Unless you can prove that the investment is for a genuinely important reason, like providing a home for family migrating to the country, emergency accommodation in a domestic violence situation, accommodation for work where the distance is very far from your first home. Make it law that you can only purchase a second home if you can prove you intend to live in there and are selling your current home. Unless you can prove you or your family intend to live in the property within 12 months of purchase, foreign investors purchasing from overseas should not be given preference over the people living in the continent at the time of the sale. Make it law that unless the landlord can prove that the tenant is a real piece of shit who is destroying their property, the tenant hasn't paid rent for 6 months, with proof of the claim and potential reasoning behind why, or the tenant willingly leaves, the tenant should stay in that property for 2 years minimum to assist in stamping out homelessness. I just really hate how unethical it is and want to own my own home, or unit, someday, and would love to make it easier for the future generations too. Gaslighting, manipulating and accusing from civil servants. If police officer, medical personnel or teacher accuses someone in distress of lying, and they have zero proof that the citizen truly lies, they will get in serious trouble. And the phrase "there is nothing we can do," if person proves that they could and had to do anything, again big trouble if they get slapped on the worst from the boss gets punished as accomplice, too. Also zero tolerance of violence in school, any type of victim blaming, profiling, indirect discrimination strictly forbidden. Many things would change if they paid fine of 500 to 000 for every deed like this plus some compensation for the victim. I'm a liberal libertarian, somewhat in conflict with each other, I know. So I want to make it illegal to make things illegal, somewhat facetious of course. But my point is it has to stop somewhere. All government does is make new law. When does it end? I think we had enough laws to function as a society long ago. As it stands now, if agents of the government want to take your liberty away, then they will find something. Leave me alone unless I'm hurting someone else or affecting another's liberty. That's pretty much all we need as law. If I'm being honest, smoking, it's more dangerous than most hallucinogens like marijuana, and much more widely available and addictive. Making it illegal might increase black market demand in the short term, but over time it would save the lives of a lot of casual smokers.